Welcome to CreativeXR 5G and AI Strands, where you will be able to find out more information about how these technologies can enhance the immersive experience. Don't forget to use the hashtag CreativeXR as you are using social media to talk about the webinar. We really want to see you chatting about it. So just to let you all know that your cameras are turned off and your audio is on mute, that's normal. This is to just ensure that there is no audio feedback during the webinar. So my name is Evelyn Ofori-Karagu. I'm an Innovation Delivery Manager here at Digital Catapult, and I will be your host for today. So in light of COVID-19, we are well aware that the arts and culture sector has taken a real hit. And we want to make sure that content creators have the resources available to continue making amazing pieces and push the industry forward. So for that reason, we have set up a series of webinars to ensure that you have insight into what is happening in the industry and learning from our partners and our friends who can provide that information for you. So today you will hear about 5G and AI, and there will be one more webinar with our partners Epic Games and Story Futures Academy, which will be happening next week, but I will explain more about that coming up. So as a brief overview of what will be happening today during the webinar, you're going to hear from experts in artificial intelligence and the immersive crossover. So after I've given an explanation of that, you will be hearing from Larry Cutler from Baobab Studios, who is here to inspire you and give you great insights into how to create AI emotive characters. He is joining us from the US, and he is really wonderfully agreed to stay up super late for us, and we're really grateful to have you online with us, Larry. So you'll be getting some inspiration from him. Then you will hear from my colleagues from on CreativeXR, our Digital Catapult and Arts Council England, and you'll learn more about how the program works and what the benefits are to you. And then you'll hear again about AI and our 5G strands. And it's really important to stay tuned in for this session, because that is where you will learn about the specific benefits of those strands to your projects. And then you'll hear some more use cases. So do stay tuned for that, because there are some great opportunities there for you all. Then there will be a Q&A session, and this session will be an opportunity for all of you attendees to ask our presenters more about what they have discussed. Then once that is done, we will go on to thank you and next steps and give you information about how you can get involved with us. So please do remember, this webinar is being recorded, and we will share the presentations with you all after the webinar. So if for any reason you have to step away from the webinar, we are recording this, so you'll get it in our post-event email. On Zoom, there is a chat facility which is available for all the attendees, and we really want to encourage connection and collaboration between all of you. So we encourage you to use that facility. So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat box in your menu. If you just click that, the chat box will open, and do get typing away, commenting on like what you've heard, and connecting with one another. And as a way to make sure like things don't get lost in the chat, we have a Typeform collaboration survey. So we would ask you to fill this out, and we will put that in the chat box as well. We ask you to fill this out if you want to make connections with people who may have skills that you're looking for to make your projects come to life. So for example, if you are a scriptwriter looking for a producer, or a director looking for a 3D game designer, or you actually want to implement AI in your project and you're looking for a technologist, a machine learning technologist, fill out this survey and we will help make those connections. But again, it will be included in our post-event email in case anything gets lost. Some guidance about the Q&A session. While our presentations are happening, you'll be able to ask our presenters questions. We do ask that you put that in the Q&A form. So it's not the Zoom chat. The Q&A form is specifically to make sure that we can see the questions coming through and relay that to the presenters as relevant. So please do put your questions in the Q&A form, address them to the relevant presenter. And if you do see in that form, there are some questions that you really want to be answered, make sure to upvote it with a thumbs up, and we will do our best to prioritize that and get that answered for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Larry Cutler. He is the CTO of Baobab Studios. Baobab Studios is the leading VR animation studio based in California, and they are behind Bonfire, starring Ali Wong, and that is the leading and the best example, I think, of like AI driven character with handcrafted animation, and Larry will be speaking more about that today. He's served on the Digital Imaging Technology Subcommittee for the Oscar Technical Achievement Awards, and he was previously the global head of character technology at DreamWorks Animation, the studio that is behind some of our favorite films and that pulls at our heartstrings. So we're really excited to have Larry here with us, even though it's super late. So what I'm going to do now is I will stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Larry. So Larry, are you with us?
I was doing the first faux pas of Zoom, which is talking while I'm muted, but I'm super excited to be talking to you today and getting to stay up a little bit later than I normally do. So thank you for having me. I think this is an amazing program, especially right now with everything that is going on. I think there's a tightening of funding for creative projects. So this is really amazing that there's all these funds to kind of get your projects up and running, which is great. So I am going to, hold on just a sec. I'm gonna switch and get presentation up. And I need to, give me 1 second.
No problem.
All right, I need to share my screen with sound. All right. All right, so I'm really excited to be talking to you. I'm gonna today talk mostly about Bonfire, which is our latest project at Baobab Studios. And I first of all just wanted to say that for us, we came together as a studio about 5 years ago, and we bring kind of deep background in creating computer animated films as well as interactive games. And we were just blown away by the possibilities of VR. And we felt it was a great medium for telling animated stories and stories where we can just like throw you in the middle of the story and make you part of the story. And that was really the appeal of doing projects in VR in the first place. And so specifically, I just want to immediately talk about why VR, and the power of storytelling in VR. It is fundamentally a different medium, as we've learned over the last 5 years from creating films. And what's exciting about it is that, first of all, you are really connected to the world around you. And so you are there, and it's like everything is so real that you can almost reach out and touch it. And at the same time, you're immersed. You can look anywhere, you can be doing anything at any time. It's all happening around you. And what we've found, over the last 5 years is that it really is a great opportunity to actually give you a role. Like, you could actually have a role in the story. You can be inspired to act if you choose to. And what makes all this possible is that everything is being rendered in real time. And so we have the opportunity for the characters to actually acknowledge you in this experience, and to be able to interact with you, to be able to build connections with characters, and basically to have characters that are responding to everything you do. And ultimately, that can create worlds where you can actually matter in the story. And so that's why AI-driven characters is such an integral part of the stories that we're telling in VR. So to date, we've created 5 pieces of content, and from our first piece, Invasion, which we did in 2015, to Bonfire, which we released last year. And I just quickly wanted to just touch upon our first piece of content, Invasion, just because in this really highlighted to us the power of VR storytelling. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a taste, just because that's kind of where we came from, and Bonfire is where we are now. And so, Invasion basically started out as the story about 2 aliens who try to take over Earth, but they're not thwarted by humans with big guns, but by a cute little bunny named Chloe, which you can see over here. And I'm just going to play you a short clip from the very beginning of the piece, where Chloe kind of hops up to you. And everything you're going to see that I'm going to show you today is actually all generated in a headset. So basically, it's all rendered in real time, and I'm just capturing. And of course, you can't really do justice to without being in a VR headset to really understand what this is. But this gives you a sense of it. So this is just the very beginning of this piece. So what you saw is Chloe hops up to you, looks you directly in the eyes, and what was interesting is that this is kind of the simplest form of AI or interactivity that we could possibly do, where basically the only form of interactivity there is that Chloe will actually track you. So she will look you directly in the eye wherever you are and kind of track where you are in the world. But what was wild about this is that when we put people in the headset, people started just reacting as if Chloe was real. So people were trying to like wave at Chloe. A lot of people would try to reach out and pet Chloe. A number of people were just like hopping around and mimicking what Chloe was doing. And people, in short, were just doing things that you would never do if you're watching this in a film. And people were able to suspend their disbelief and to treat Chloe as if she was a real bunny hopping up to you. And this just, I think we realized that there was something here, that VR really was this powerful medium where you can have connections and you can relate to characters in ways that are just very novel and different from the relationship of watching something up on a screen in a rectangular form. And we love, I'm not at all at Baobab, we all come from film backgrounds and have an incredible love for film, but this is just being able to work in an environment that's just very different and very powerful. So if we fast forward a few years, Bonfire is the piece that we released last year, originally at Tribeca Film Festival, and then we released it at a number of film festivals, and then it showed to consumers in around Thanksgiving time. And Bonfire, at its core, is really a story about you being crash landed on an alien planet. I guess we somehow have a thing for aliens, and different aliens from Invasion. And the whole piece is about building a connection and a meaningful relationship with an alien life form, which we call pork bun. Pork bun because this character looks like a nice pork bun with legs. And um, at the beginning, pork bun is really suspicious of you and almost stalking you. And through your actions, you have to build trust so that pork bun actually wants to befriend you, and ultimately you work as a team to kind of thwart off other life forms on the planet. And so this is also the first piece. We actually have given you a role to play in each of our films. So in Invasion, you're a little bunny and you can hop around. And in this piece, this is the first project where you're actually a hero character. You're the hero character in the story. And so storytelling at its core, like a great film, is all about a hero character having to make incredibly difficult decisions under pressure that reveal something about yourself. And it's something that is often surprising and yet inevitable. And for us, we were always concerned about whether we could actually make you the hero character and make you be the one that has to go through these difficult decisions. But in Bonfire, we place you front and center. And so I'm just going to play you a short clip. This is kind of like a short video overview of Bonfire.
Greetings, Colony Scout number 817. Your ship woke you because it found a planet that just might be suitable for us humans here on Earth.
What the heck is going on? Mayday, mayday! We're going down! Brace for impact! Something is out there. And if this fire doesn't scare it off, things could get really ugly. How embarrassing. These compact nourishment cylinders are loaded with nutrition. Why isn't it attacking? It's attacking! You need to take this mission more seriously. Now what?
Good luck, Scout 817. You just might end up being humanity's big hero.
All right, so at its core, this piece is really about emotive character AI. And what I mean by this is that for us, if you watch a DreamWorks or a Pixar film, there's an incredible amount of precision and handcraft and detail that goes into every frame and every second of animation. And for us, we're actually having characters that are being rendered based on your actions at 90 frames a second, twice, once for each eye. And so how do we actually create kind of procedural animation that has that same quality and captures the essence and the personality of pork bun in this case, or of characters? And so that's what we set out to do on this project. So we actually, obviously we bring together great technologists and great artists, and they're always there to serve the story. And so for us, we actually always start from a creative vantage point. So these are some early animation tests that we did to try to understand pork bun's personality. And so this is the type of test that you would typically do on an animated film. In this case, we're really exploring the different emotions that pork bun would need to go through. We went a little too far here. I'm not sure what that was. And also, one of the sort of things that you have at your disposal are these compact nourishment cylinders that look an awful lot like marshmallows. So we're really exploring how pork bun might eat those. We also, even though we're a computer animation studio, we often revert to hand-drawn 2D animation. And what's great about this test is this was done really early on before we had any models and any character rigs. And so it allowed us to really try to understand the personality of pork bun very quickly. And a lot of this actually made it into the final piece in terms of the animation specifically. So we put all this together, we built this great AI system, and this was an early test. I love showing early work just because you often learned a lot more from the things that go wrong than you do from the things that go right. So the question you might be asking yourself, well, is this good? What is this? And for us, the answer was no, this is not good. So we were able to create a system that allowed you to kind of get from point A to B. So we had all the locomotion in there and movement, and you could eat, but it didn't capture Pork Bun's personality. And so, Eric Darnell, our director, he's our chief creative officer, and he was the writer and director of the Madagascar films. And so Eric kept saying, like, I don't see Pork Bun's personality, and it became like really concerning. How do we actually integrate that? And so we really started with, again, animation saying, okay, well, here's how a hand animation, how we would expect this to look like. So this is animators coming in and kind of, sort of animating what they would hope to see in the engine. So even simple things of, how Pork Bun would move. So some of the things that came out of this were, it was kind of like a language for Pork Bun's how he interacts with the world. So Pork Bun, has that follow through. He always looks and then moves very quickly to his next place. And Pork Bun never turns around. So in that previous test, you actually noticed that Pork Bun actually, because it was the shortest path, he moved and turned his his head backwards like this to move. And Pork Bun doesn't do that. He always keeps his eyes on you because he's distrustful of you. So those are just some of the things that we tried to build into our system. And so now we're starting to incorporate this into our AI system, from very simple things like turning your head, but with Pork Bun's personality, to how he moves and capturing that quick motion and follow through, and how Pork Bun eats. And these are some look-ats. And then some more movement tests. And then if we put all that together, this is actually some footage from the final piece. So this was all, again, taken from the headset.
What are you doing? We didn't come all this way to play fetch. I really think you need to take this mission more seriously.
All right, well, I wanted to just close, obviously there's the elephant in the room of COVID-19 has actually impacted all of our lives in a wide variety of ways. And I did just want to touch on some of the impacts. Baobab is a small startup company. So the impact on startups and entertainment, and kind of give you at least my perspective. And so first of all, I just want to say that, and this is again, my own personal belief, is that things are not going to go back to normal until there is a vaccine. And so, the idea of people being in large crowded theaters or at film festivals, all putting on headsets in a VR theater, I think is not going to happen for a while. And, and so vaccines, what they're saying is that somewhere in the 12 to 18 months range, and that may be optimistic, to be honest. So I think that what feels like, like maybe we're in the middle of this, I think that it really is forcing us to rethink sort of what the next year is going to look like, because I don't think it's short term. Obviously, one of the big impacts, which has already been alluded to, is that funding for projects and for companies is really getting much, much tighter, just because so many organizations, from governments to large companies to venture capitalists, are really, really impacted in the short term. So that is certainly something that is going to be impactful in the coming months. Now, the good news is that from the types of work, at least that we do, and that I think a lot of you in the audience are doing, is that our ability to create content that is animated or that is digital is something that hasn't really fundamentally changed. And so, like, for our company, we were able to go to everyone working remotely very easily, in part because we had a large remote team that was distributed throughout the world, with a number of people in Europe. Most of our team was in the US, but not necessarily all in the Bay Area. And so with modern technology, we're able to have VR dailies reviews with everyone in headsets or watching, from everyone being in different locations and being able to stream what our director is looking at on a Quest to everyone. So it's pretty amazing. And so our ability to create content, I think fundamentally doesn't change. And that is really amazing news, and is a really good thing. The thing that has changed is the ability to distribute our content is fundamentally different. And for us, as an example, we rely heavily on film festivals in order to kind of build buzz for our things. And film festivals just have been great at promoting immersive technologies and immersive projects and building buzz and momentum. And all the film festivals have been canceled in recent months, from Tribeca to Annecy. And so for our latest project, we had planned kind of a rollout scheme or schedule that started in April, and we cannot do that in the same way. So for us, it's really about how do we build kind of a digital sort of marketing plan and a digital means of showcasing our work throughout the year. So those are just some of the things that we're grappling with. We could discuss this more in the Q&A. And to end on a positive note, though, I just wanted to say that one of the things that struck us from our previous project, Crow the Legend, which is based off of a Native American folktale, is this Lakota blessing, the Lakota tribe, a blessing that they say when at the beginning of any event and at the end of every gathering, which is Matakue Oyasin. And it means that we are all related, we are all connected. And I think, especially given the world we live in today, that is a really meaningful and powerful blessing and sentiment, because we're all isolated, and yet it's really important for us to be socially connected. And at the same time, it's a great metaphor for VR, where in VR, we have the ability to really connect you with the worlds in a fundamental way. And that's really what we're trying to do, to connect you with characters, to connect you in the worlds in ways that are really different from what we've done in our previous lifetime. So with that, thank you. And I will exit. I will stop sharing my screen. I can figure out how to do that. Oops. There we go.
Hello, Larry. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. That was really, really great. So can you see me?
I can.
Wonderful. So right now, attendees, you'll have the opportunity to ask Larry some questions. Understandably, he's staying up really late, so he will have to leave shortly afterwards. So again, we encourage you, if you have questions for Larry, do send them through to the Q&A box. We already have some coming through, so I'll get started with those. So while you're asking questions, one thing I wanted to ask you, Larry, is sort of to start at a base, artificial intelligence right now is a great buzzword, and a lot of people mislabel their technology with AI. And wanted to hear from you, how would you explain to our attendees how AI should be used in a real way, in a way that isn't tokenistic, that actually truly adds something to the narrative? It would be good to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, AI has been a very overloaded term, and you know, artificial intelligence. I think first of all, most recently, everyone has been really focused on a subset of AI, which is machine learning, and machine learning has an incredible amount of promise because it's basically saying, hey, let's take a ton of data, you know, that you might have amassed. So imagine you take, you know, 20, 30, or you know, an hour's worth of someone moving around, and then I can actually use that to kind of predict future behavior. So instead of having these sort of tightly crafted walk cycles and run cycles and blends between them, I can actually use machine learning to actually learn so that, you know, given any pose that I'm in and given trajectories, I can predict what would be a plausible pose. So that's one subset of AI. For us, you know, the way we've been thinking about AI is that it's really about creating procedural, in this case, procedural animation systems. And so that is, you know, in some sense, a more traditional kind of game AI. But for us, the focus that we've put on it is how do we actually apply that to kind of character, personality and character behavior. Whereas obviously a lot of games, the focus is much more on the gameplay and the effects and, you know, the world around you. And so the personality and the emotiveness of the characters isn't necessarily front and center. Not, you know, certain games definitely do that, but that's really been our focus is how do we actually build AI systems that are smart enough that they can actually, you know, sort of give a believable performance and still surprise you at times as well. And I think that that's where, you know, we've started to play around with machine learning as an example, because that gives you the opportunity to like have unexpected things happen in your AI systems. And so that was really one of the fun things with Pork Bun is that we ended up with a lot of this unexpected behavior that, you know, like basically that, you know, you would never be able to get through handcrafting everything, you know, every possible outcome.
Great, thanks. Another question that has come in is, how far are we from having characters speak to us in immersive experiences?
That is such a great question because, so, well, there's two parts to this. So it's funny because we started our first film was Invasion, and where we had characters that actually spoke a made-up language. You know, so they did speak, but you didn't understand. Now there is actually an actual language to it, so you can go and try to figure out what the language is. But you know, it wasn't until we did Crow the Legend that we actually had characters that were talking to each other and talking to you. So that part is definitely there. I think the thing that probably the question people are really asking is how far is it for you to be able to have a conversation with these characters? And you know, obviously there's been an incredible amount of work that's gone into these, you know, AI, your series, and you know, all of these AI systems that we're starting to use as voice assistants. So there really is a lot of great groundwork, and so our director Eric has really wanted to put that into our projects, and we're looking at doing some amount of that in future projects, but we're touching on that gingerly, I would say, just because it is, you know, like it's just such a huge to do that well is going to require a you know, like an incredible amount of effort to get that done well. So like we had some ideas. We originally Bonfire did have a voice component where you actually could vocalize, and depending on how you vocalize, that would affect the pork bun character. And we did a lot of early tests that were really promising. We ended up deciding to cut it out of the story for a couple of practical reasons. So one was actually that the data shows that people aren't necessarily comfortable in, especially like in a shared space, like at a film festival talking. So we didn't want to rely on that for things. And then there was just some practical concerns about how we distribute all of that on different headsets and, like different technologies. So, but that is actually a direction we're looking in our future projects. So I think it's coming, but I think the full-on characters that talk that have full-on conversations with you is still many, many years away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
That it definitely, as we make you a character in the scene, and as you have characters that are talking to you, it's kind of weird if you're not conversing back. And so we want to try to, facilitate that, and sooner rather than later, because that definitely, creates a very different dynamic than your typical conversation that you're used to having.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to let everyone know, we'll have maybe 3 or so more questions, and then Lara will get off. So another question from DigiCult. He says, "Hi Larry, can you unpack the AI elements of the pork bun build a little? What kind of knowledge is developing in the character in relation to the behavior of the user in the examples you showed?"
It's a great question, and I could probably spend an hour going through that. I mean, we built a system. It's really hard to, to completely unpack that, but basically we built a system that, first of all, we did have a constrained set of inputs, and so but the pork bun character, you can think of the pork bun character as having a set of, a set of both personality traits, but a set of vectors that, how scared is pork bun, and so, how much does he trust you, and so you have these axes that change dynamically based on what you do, and then based on that, pork bun is kind of determining what's the best course of action and kind of the best animation to kind of move ahead with for where you are. And then certain things that pork bun does, as well as there's another character, Debbie, that interacts with you, are completely interruptible. And then other things, like the objective needs to be met. And so, a great example of some of the things that are really fun is that, we had to kind of build in all of these edge cases into kind of the systems and into the world, so that, if you throw a compact nourishment cylinder, or if you throw a log at a character, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to stop what they're going to say, and they're going to get pissed at you, and they're going to be like, stop it. And then you throw a log again, and they're going to, have different responses. And so we had to kind of account for that in the system. And I think that's one of the interesting things, is that it's all of these edge cases, so that everything is always, anything in the world that you can do should always be active and alive. And that was something that we really learned from some of our previous projects, where it's very easy in a VR space to have interactivity that turns on and off based on when you need it. And so that was something we really sought to make it so that pork bun, like the characters and what you do, are always alive and reacting to everything that you can do with it. So I know that doesn't completely answer the question, but I hope it gives you a sense of the types of things we're grappling with.
Awesome. So another question that we have is asking, can you expand more on AI character-driven work? So R&D projects that you may have done, or inspiring work you have experienced using augmented reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we've been really inspired recently by some of the work that has been done both in the research community as well as in, at studios. And so there's some really great stuff on that's been done by the studios on motion matching, for example, where basically, one of the typical things that you do under the hood is that you're always blending a set of animations. And so, like no matter what system you have, then it's kind of like you're blending between different animations at any given time. And the problem with that is that most animations don't blend well. And so you end up with these incredibly large number of animations that have very specific things that they can blend with, and a lot of complexity there. And so this approach basically says, here's a big database of animation, and based on kind of your trajectory, like your velocities of certain, your arms and your legs, and based on where you are, I'm going to like pick the next pose for you. And so that's something that has been built into a number of games, and has been kind of like widely, published and talked about at GDC and other, sort of game conferences. And so it really allows you to not have to have such tightly crafted cycles for animation. And then in the research community, there's been a lot of great work that's been published at SIGGRAPH and SIGGRAPH Asia that is really about doing similar types of things, but using machine learning, where basically you can really create very convincing biped and quadruped characters that are moving around and reacting to what you do. And that work is really inspiring to us, so that we can have much more dynamic characters. For us, we're still trying to figure out how to imbue the personality into some of these things, because they're not exactly set up for that. So they kind of handle the like locomotion portion of things, but not necessarily the personality part. But I think it's still really inspirational work that we've been, sort of looking at very keenly.
Mm-hmm. Great. And what key advice would you give to immersive producers creating AI-powered characters? Like, I don't know, maybe like top 3.
Yeah.
Advice.
Well, so I'm gonna say the biggest piece of advice is that really, I can't stress the importance of user testing, because once you, I mean, it's a great thing to do with immersive projects, even if there's not AI involved. But once you get into characters that are interacting with you, and once you have interactivity, what you find is that users do things that you never expect. And so it's incredibly important to do user testing often, to bring people into your studio, or well, now we actually do this, we actually have been doing these user tests virtually, which is pretty interesting. We still have to find people who have headsets, which is challenging, but then we kind of do the user tests remotely. But what's interesting is you don't need to test a ton of people. So you can actually have a very small sample size, and you learn everything that's wrong. And it's really painful, because you immediately see all the problems that people run into, and all the things that don't react properly in your characters. And so we did an incredible amount of user testing on Bonfire, and it really, pushed the project in directions that we would never have gone in otherwise. So if there was one thing, it would be to have user testing, and to really build, from a producer standpoint, since the question was asked about producers, is to build time into your schedule for those creative iterations and churn once you do the user testing. Because we've certainly run into problems where we do a user testing, we find out a bunch of things we should do, but our budget and project don't necessarily allow for changing things. And so then it's kind of a much more painful dance to figure out how to actually incorporate this great feedback into something.
Great. So I think, unfortunately, I think, our time with you is limited.
Yeah.
But we're really grateful to have you join us and answer some of your questions. To the audience, please do keep sending your questions through. Like I mentioned before, we'll have our digital counterpart AI and ML technologists be able to answer some other questions you have around AI. But Larry, thank you for joining us. You'll be able to have a good night's rest now.
All right.
Yes, so thank you again.
Thank you very much for having me. This was really a pleasure, and I really am really excited for the the grants and the projects that come out of the CreativeXR. So
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. Sorry I can't stay around till the end.
So thank you. So I will take over for the screen. So just going to share my screen with you all now. That was Larry Cutler from Baobab Studios. So we had our questions for him, and yes, again, do please continue to put your questions in the Q&A form while our presentations are going on. So next session is I'm going to give you some more explanation about what CreativeXR is and what we offer you, like funding, support with showcase. So I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, Madalena Crosti and Tonya Nelson, who will provide you with some more insight. So over to you, Maddie.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Maddalena Crosti, and I'm the program lead for the immersive programs at Digital Catapult. And I'm just going to give you a bit of context of Digital Catapult and where CreativeXR sits within it. So Digital Catapult, our main goal here is to grow the UK economy through advanced digital technologies. Next slide, please. And next slide. And the technologies we work across are four. So there's future networks, which includes 5G and IoT, immersive technologies, artificial intelligence, and distributed systems. And we work across the different projects and programs across two different industries, which are the creative industries and the manufacturing industries. So CreativeXR is our flagship immersive creative program. And we're really excited in the context of this webinar, because this year with CreativeXR, we're really making an effort to integrate other digital Catapult expertise within the program, not just immersive. So far we've run 3 cohorts of this is our 3rd cohort. So we've had 20 companies in the first 2 cohorts per cohort. So in total, we've had 40 companies go through the program, and we've helped development of 40 prototypes. We've also been able to finance production of 9 of those prototypes through CreativeXR. So what would you get as being part of a participant of CreativeXR? £20,000 in prototype funding, free use of the immersive labs, which are all over the UK, and which teams in the past have used for things like user testing, which obviously is very important, as Larry highlighted. Workshops to support the development of your prototype over the 3-month prototyping period. And these workshops and mentorship could be around things like narrative storytelling development, business plan development, and technical development. And finally, you would be pitching at our showcase and market event, which we run for every cohort. So last year we ran it in October, and it was hugely successful. We had a lot of teams who gained financing opportunities and exhibition opportunities. And this year we will be running it in November. So we have taken the decision that no matter what, we will run this event, and it will either be in person or remote, depending on how the situation evolves. But we do hope that this year, like other years, we'll have great attendance from top financiers and exhibitors from all over the world. So another huge benefit of CreativeXR that I wanted to highlight is the fact that you'd be part of a cohort of 20 extremely talented teams. And many of the teams in the past 2 cohorts ended up collaborating with each other, and they highlighted that this was really one of the best things of CreativeXR and actually wanted to spend more time with each other. So this year we're really building that into the program as well. And that's also why we're really trying to organize opportunities for you guys to meet each other and collaborate even before CreativeXR through the type form. So please do take advantage of that. So what do we mean by immersive experience for CreativeXR? So definitely the experience is an audience-facing one. Next slide. It could be delivered through virtual, augmented, or mixed reality medium. And when it's not on a head-mounted display, it could be utilizing real-time technologies. It could have an element of interactivity in it. And it could also be a spatial audio experience. So there's definitely many different mediums and technologies that one could use to create an immersive, creative piece of content for CreativeXR. But definitely the experience uses these technologies to somehow create a sense of space that the audience member can feel in some way around them. So they create an experience. So also, next slide, please, thanks. So this year, we have an exciting new development in the program, which we'll be talking more about today, which are the strands. So these are basically different themes within the overall CreativeXR brief that present additional benefits to the companies and look at specific themes. So the 5G strand and the AI strand, which will see up to 5 projects and up to 2 projects each. And we'll be hearing more about those today. And then we have our sponsor partner strands. So we have 2 new partners on the program this year, which are Epic Games and Story Futures Academy, which is really exciting. And they will be supporting 2 CreativeXR strands, which are around narrative and repeatable experiences and around projects that are built on Unreal Engine. So if you'd like to apply to these, please tune into the webinar next week on April 29th, and you'll be hearing more from Story Futures and from Epic Games about what type of benefits you can get and what they're looking for. So just a few words on the timeline. The open call closes on May 17th. We have a 3-month prototyping period between July and September, and then the showcase will be in November, either in person or remotely. And just a few final words from me about CreativeXR and the post-pandemic recovery. So firstly, we'd like to encourage you to really think creatively about how you will be creating this piece between the time of July and September. And we do understand that this might present a challenge from normal ways of working. And we also encourage you to really think creatively around the distribution formats. What will audiences be comfortable with seeing? How will they see the piece? How will they access it? We encourage you to think really creatively as possible around these challenges. And we understand that they are challenges, but we also really believe in the talent that exists in this sector and the ability of the sector to innovate. So do use all your creativity to think about these different challenges as you're writing your application, and do collaborate with each other to overcome these. So that's it for me. I'll see you later at the Q&A. And I'm going to hand over to Tanya Nelson, who will be telling you a bit more about Arts Council and what they're doing over there. Tanya, are you here? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for this briefing. Really nice to see so many of you here. I just wanted to take a few minutes, because I know we've got some great experts lined up to speak, just to talk to you a little bit about CreativeXR in the context of Arts Council strategy called Let's Create. And that's a strategy, that's our 10-year strategy that we published back in February, January, February timeframe. And I just wanted to kind of talk to you through that a little bit, because I see in the Q&A, some people are asking questions about what's the future funding landscape going to be. And I thought I could just give you a little bit of perspective from the Arts Council point of view. So just the premise behind Let's Create is that everybody in the UK should have access to great art and culture, but also that everybody should have a chance to participate in creating art, whether it's on an individual level, on a community level, or on a national level. Can I have next slide, please? And the reason why we think this is super important is because we want to encourage, we want to have a country that's both creative and cultural and doing cutting edge work. We want to have a country that is innovative, not only in terms of arts and culture, but innovative across the board. And we believe this is the best way to support that. And so we will invest in organizations that are innovative, that use new technologies, not only to create new types of content, but also find new ways of reaching audiences. And we want to encourage people to experiment and feel that, you know, CreativeXR is something we've invested in for a number of years, and really feel that it's been a really strong program in getting people to create really great work in the immersive realm. And we're looking forward to more experimentation in the future. Next slide, please. Another thing that we're looking for within our new strategy, and I think it's just completely relevant today, which is this whole idea of dynamism. So we want our organizations, or anybody that we invest in, to be dynamic and to be responding to changing public tastes and habits, obviously pressures on funding from the public realm, and obviously COVID-19 is really pushing us all to be dynamic. And we really want you to be thinking about, when you're thinking about project ideas, being very relevant to today and what people might be feeling as they're coming out of a COVID-19 experience. I think in the past year or so, we've seen that location-based immersive experiences have been quite popular, where people are going to a cultural venue or someplace outside the home to experience immersive work. But maybe that demand will change post COVID-19, and so it'll be very interesting to hear what your ideas are, and to think about more generally how the ideas that you have might be able to be scaled up, and for other organizations to adopt some of the thinking that you might have, and how it can be kind of leading edge in the future. And certainly we're really, really excited about the idea of taking what's been very successful in the purely immersive realm and then connecting that up with AI and 5G, areas that, you know, Arts Council hasn't spent that much time on, but we're looking to spend more time on in the future. So really exciting opportunity here with Digital Catapult with this experience. Can I have the final slide? And just to say, you may or may not have heard, Arts Council has redeployed its funding to create an emergency response to COVID-19. But I just wanted to highlight for you that, the things that we've done are completely, I think, support what we're funding in terms of CreativeXR, in terms of we are supporting organizations that want to change their business model. We're supporting organizations that want to create public-facing work that have a digital or online element to it, and that we are able to fund digital costs incurred of transferring a business online. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see how the projects that come out of CreativeXR, could be adopted by organizations that we fund, either NPOs or non-NPOs. And I guess I just wanted to say that, we are thinking very much about the future and about innovation and how we respond in a positive way, and not kind of being reactive and going back to what we've been doing before, but how can we use this time to kind of support innovation going forward. So I think I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Tanya, for that. You've heard a little bit about CreativeXR, the opportunities that are out there. So next, we are moving to Nathan Coulson, who is our AI and ML technologist, who will be talking more about the benefits in the AI strand and provide you some more insight into use cases. So Nathan, are you ready? I'll hand over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Evelyn. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So we're really excited in the AI team to be participating in CreativeXR. Partly because we're always looking for opportunities to work across the different technology strands that Maddie introduced. So we work on the AI and machine learning side, but we're kind of very keen to work with the immersive and kind of future network side as well. So just to give you a bit of an idea of what the AI team does, so we have a startup accelerator called the Machine Intelligence Garage that provides computation power, technical expertise, mentoring, and networking to AI startups. So that's going to be a similar kind of support that we'll offer to the CreativeXR companies that are on the AI strand. But I'm going to start with just talking a bit about what is artificial intelligence. So as Larry kind of mentioned, it's a very broad term. It's got a lot of kind of hype behind it. And what we try and do with the Digital Catapult is we try and kind of cut through that and try and really look at what you're trying to use AI to do. And sometimes it can be the simplest solution that is the best. So the broad definition that we kind of we subscribe to is artificial intelligence is the ability of a digital system to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings, which is very broad. It can include things around robotics, the ability of a character to emote, for example, or the ability to take data and then make a decision. Next slide, please. So this is again something that that Larry mentioned, that artificial intelligence is very broad, and a lot of the kind of the hype and the attention is around a subset of artificial intelligence, which is machine learning, which is using often very large amounts of data to make decisions and predictions and to create intelligent systems. And within machine learning, a subset of that, kind of a set of techniques called deep learnings, where you have a multi-layer neural network architecture. And this is where a lot of the advances in artificial intelligence have come recently, using a vast amount of data to perform tasks like image classification, the generation of new content. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need a vast amount of data to leverage AI. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about three kind of broad areas that AI is good at. So pattern recognition, optimization, and imitation. And then later on, I'm going to talk about how this applies to immersive technologies. So just to focus in on machine learning for a second. So a good comparison between machine learning and typical software engineering is that in software engineering, you have to put into the program very specific instructions how to behave in certain scenarios. And that can be described as procedural programming. And that's kind of similar to kind of what Larry was talking about in terms of thinking about how to make an AI character interactive, and then thinking about the procedures within which you can do that. And then with machine learning, it's about feeding a lot of data, a lot of examples to an algorithm and allowing that algorithm to learn and then be able to respond to new stimulus. Next slide, please. So this is an example that's quite well known, which is kind of object recognition in images or video. And this is the YOLO model, which is you only look once. And this has been trained on thousands and thousands of images of cars and people on traffic lights, so that when it sees a new car and a new person, a new traffic light, it's able to match that pattern. And this is very much dependent on the tuning of the model, but also the amount of data you feed it. So that's an example of how AI is used to recognize patterns. Next slide, please. And then around optimization, this is essentially where you have a particular problem, you have a particular metric you want to optimize, and then you kind of create, you develop an algorithm to optimize all your different inputs and all the things you can control in order to get the best possible result. Next slide, please. So a really famous example of this is when DeepMind created AlphaStar, which is a machine learning system based on reinforcement learning and deep learning, which is able to play the StarCraft game to expert level and beat kind of the best in the world at this game. And this is a very, very kind of complex game, involves building, generating resources, having kind of military strategies, and similar to its advances in Go and Shogi, this just shows that given the right machine learning system and a lot of data and a lot of compute power, it's possible to do some incredible things with optimizing AI. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then we have imitation. So this is quite relevant to the creative industries as well. So you're able to use artificial intelligence, machine learning to generate new content like faces, textures, or structures. And obviously this has ethical implications, which we're also very interested in. But essentially how it works is you take a lot of examples of faces, for example, and then you offer it to a model that tries to determine whether it's real or not. And then it's kind of like a game that's played over many, many thousands and tens of thousands of iterations until the model is able to create faces that are able to fool the model. And so you end up with all the faces between all the other faces that are actually in your data set. Next slide, please. So now I'm just going to quickly talk about how AI can be brought in to enhance immersive technology. So before I get into that, I totally agree with Larry in that there's a lot of very advanced artificial intelligence, mainly in the field of machine learning, but it doesn't. I think it's better to use something that is simple, as long as you achieve what you want to achieve in terms of kind of encouraging people to feel, kind of relate to a character, for example. So some of these techniques may or may not be relevant, depends on what you want to do within your own experience. So the three application areas that we're looking at is content generation, new dimensions of user interaction, and AI characters. Next slide, please. So this is just a short video.
Let's try and darken that up a bit with some cloud. Oh, that's wonderful. What if we were to change all that to rock?
Okay, let's click on rock, and we gotta replace the mountain.
Let's try waterfall just by pulling water down from the top there.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be great if everybody could be an artist? If we could take our
I know there's a lot of very creative people on the line. That's not in any way to it's like, I don't think robots are going to take your job anytime soon. The kind of point of this is to show that using kind of generative artificial intelligence, you can programmatically create content and new environments so that you can concentrate on the things that are kind of most crucial to the experience. It's kind of just a new tool in your toolkit. But that's kind of an area that we're very interested in. Next slide, please. Great, and then and this, what I kind of mean here is, so interpret and respond to complex user feedback. So in the example of Bonfire, the user kind of feedback is kind of where the user is looking and where the user throws the marshmallow. And then the kind of character interacts with that. But what if you could, for example, estimate the pose of your user, and then from that infer the mood of the user, or how open they are, or maybe you could use wearables to track the heart rate and maybe even how much someone is perspirating, and how can you use these unconscious signals to enhance experience in a non-creepy way, right? So this is always the key kind of thing. It's how can you use all of the input that you're getting from the user to make it seem more natural, also thinking about the ethical issues around what data you're using, what you might be able to infer about people. So that's kind of a key thing that we do here at the Catapult, is we think about the responsible use of AI. Next slide, please. And then finally, and this also was touched on by Larry, so going from the kind of current position of you have AI characters that are very cleverly, like procedurally kind of programmed to be able to interact with the user in a very convincing way, and the bridge that's coming, and I agree it will take a while, is how do you then integrate some of the really impressive advances in kind of interactive chatbots that you see with things like Google Duplex, where an artificial intelligence system is able to interact with a human almost to the point where the human doesn't know that it's a machine. Again, there are ethical issues with that, but I think what's really interesting with applications of virtual reality is that they will know that it's an artificial being, and also potentially you'd be able to create a system which is very convincing and potentially easier to create than the Google duplex system, because you have a very fixed context. You have a very fixed kind of world and story that you can create interactivity around. So potentially there's scope there for something that is really, really interesting and convincing. Next slide, please. Great, so I'll just wrap this up by talking about some of the support you'll receive from the AI side, as well as the support from the CreativeXR team. So you'll get kind of technical mentoring from myself and other members of the AI and machine learning team about how you want to integrate AI into your experience. You'll have access to specialized compute resources. So as part of the program this year, we have agreed with AWS that the companies in the program will have access to $10,000 worth of cloud credits for 2 years, and they'll be able to use that to train various AI models and kind of do what you need to do with cloud resources. We also have some on-site infrastructure as well that you can access. So the compute side is somewhat covered there. And then you can also network with potential technology partners. So for example, other startups on the machine intelligence garage who might have relevant technology to the experience you're building. So yeah, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing your questions in the Q&A stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, for that. So we have one more presentation, and that is from Caroline Boyd, who is the Innovation Delivery Manager for our 5G technology layer. So I will be handing over to her. So Caroline, are you ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Well, yes, thank you for the introduction, Evelyn. I'm Caroline Boyd. I'm an Innovation Delivery Manager here at the Digital Catapult. And also on the call is my colleague Parabors Ensami, who is a Senior 5G Technologist, and he will be here to answer your questions after we give this overview of what we're offering on the 5G strand of CreativeXR. So both myself and Parabors work on the 5G technology layer at the Catapult, which was set up to increase understanding of 5G applications and accelerate its adoption in industry. So that means that we work a lot with kind of big corporates and government on 5G programs and projects, but also myself and Parabors lead on our 5G testbed accelerator program, which supports startups and scale-ups to become early adopters of 5G. But today we're really excited to talk about the crossover collaboration that we're doing with the CreativeXR team. Obviously it's really exciting for us as the 5G team because we want to make the UK a kind of lead in 5G, and we can't really do that without the creative industries. But also just from our work on our existing 5G programs, we've seen the kind of huge potential that 5G can bring to immersive companies to expand their offering kind of both creatively and commercially as well, especially in this kind of new world where we're all kind of undergoing this big transformation on how we consume digital content when we're stuck at home. So we just think the opportunity is really big, and we're really excited to be able to support creative companies to kind of take advantage of this early technology. So just a bit about what we're actually trying to offer with the 5G strand. So we want to give creative companies the kind of level of understanding that they need to take advantage of the capabilities of 5G. Obviously that those new capabilities will enable new business models as well. So we want to think about, what might it change on that level too. So when you're thinking of, maybe kind of mass experiences that will be possible in the future, wireless VR, that kind of thing, the testing for that can kind of start now. And yeah, we want to support that kind of beginning of the journey technically with the support of our 5G specialists at the Catapult. Next slide, please, Evelyn. Can I get the next slide, please? Thank you. Or sorry, previous slide. I thought we hadn't switched. Thank you. So what will you actually get if you get onto the 5G Strand? So you'll get access to the testbed facilities in London and in Brighton, as well as all of the latest hardware that you'd actually need to test on those facilities. We've got a full list of all of the technical facilities later in the presentation, which will be shared in the slides afterwards, so you'll have all of that kind of techie detail. And you'll also get one-to-one technical support from our 5G specialists to get yourself set up and testing and integrated on our 5G network. This will be done on an individual basis with each project team, so you'll be getting the advice and support on your individual project at the stage of development that you actually need it. So what we expect from you, if you want to apply to the 5G Strand, is to have a good understanding of how 5G will actually add value to your project or your business. You'll also need the technical ability within the team to be able to work alongside our 5G technologists. We obviously understand that you won't have a kind of communications engineering specialist in your team, but you'll need somebody with the level of immersive technology understanding that they understand the connectivity layer and can actually put into practice what our 5G specialists advise. Also, this one is a bit tricky. You'll have to be at the testbed location on a couple of occasions to be able to test on the network. Obviously, we realize in a locked down world that might be a bit tricky, but the digital catapult facilities testbed facilities will be open throughout the prototyping phase, and we'll try to be really flexible on how that is done. Depending on government guidelines, it'll be done in a socially distanced manner, and we'll try to be really flexible over how much we need people to be there. But unfortunately, in order to test on the network, you will need to be there at least to set up on the network and to test on the network. So we'll try to be as flexible as we can on that. If travel is totally not, if lockdown is still 100% on, we'll have to redesign the offering somewhat, but we will be offering some kind of 5G support. But we're going with that we will still be able to access the facilities on some level throughout the prototyping phase. So next slide, please, Evelyn. Yeah, so just very briefly, what actually is 5G? It's the 5th generation of wireless communications technologies. We've had 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, and this is 5G. So compared with previous generations, though, 5G gives us improved service in a number of areas. So we've got network speed and increased data transfer capabilities. So 4G gives us a maximum download speed of about 300 megabits per second, whereas 5G gives us about 10 gigabits per second, which means that we'll be able to kind of stream content and interact with content with a lot less like buffering and lagging that we currently experience on a 4G network. There's also a really big increase in network capacity on 5G. So the amount of traffic that the network can handle at any one time, which means that we'll be able to do things that we can't currently do. So again, if you're thinking about these kind of like mass VR experiences, that's the kind of thing that would enable that. And also it's a lot more reliable and a lot more secure than previous generations of connectivity. Next slide, please, Ethan. So why is this important for immersive content production? So obviously this is going to have an effect on the user experience. As we said, users will be able to interact with their virtual environments with far less delay than they can now. Things like remote rendering of immersive content because of the network capacity will be possible, and also the devices that we actually use will be able to receive and transmit more data than they currently can. Which opens up new avenues for distribution of VR content as well as consumption. And that obviously means lots of opportunities to create new experiences and business models around these new capabilities. And as we probably already know, there's lots of experimentation already starting to happen in this particular cross technology, so immersive and 5G. Everyone on this call probably will have heard of this, but in February this year, DCMS announced a £30 million fund around research into use case building for creative applications of 5G. So the potential of this this particular marriage of technologies is really being recognized, you know, at a national and international level as well. Next slide, please, Evelyn. So these are just some of the use cases that we've worked on at Digital Catapult in 5G and immersive applications already, and also a couple that we haven't and that we're really interested in working on. So the first area is obviously interactive VR. So one thing 5G is really brings us is a low latency. So that enables that kind of real-time interaction in a virtual environment, which can be either, you know, on the performance side or on the audience side. So when you're thinking of something like an augmented performance, so for example, at an event, you could have a kind of AR experience that the audience views through a 5G enabled phone, for instance. Or you could think of things like distributed performance. So actors or performers in kind of different geographical areas, but delivering a kind of synchronized performance. And we'll actually see an example of this that Digital Catapult worked on in collaboration with King's College London and the University of Bristol. If we just play this video.
Today we did the world's first 5G three-way concert. It's the world's first because nobody has ever connected three physical sites, and the latency was so low thanks to a very pioneering 5G design that we as musicians felt as if we were in the very same place, physical place.
We have connected three places in the UK, two in London, and that is King's College and the Digital Catapult, and the Millennium Square at Bristol. We named the showcase Orchestrating the Orchestra, and you can take the analogy from an orchestra of musicians where you have the conductor. It actually brings all the musicians together to perform in a full synchrony.
We leveraged the capabilities of a software platform called 5G UK Exchange that allows us to bring together the resources of individual 5G testbeds and provide the quality of service needed to make such events happen on demand.
With 5G, you can enable distributed orchestras and gigs. You can have rehearsals across the globe with your parties not being in the same town or even in the same room with you. In the UK and across the globe, we see deployments of 5G starting from this year. But in order to experience the full capabilities of 5G, we should expect this to be in the next 2 to 3 years.
It felt very inspirational because you could feel like they were in the room with you, and it just made me very motivated and it made me feel very alive.
It's really exciting to think how this technology will develop and maybe in the future be able to also reproduce what you feel one-to-one with a person. We're not in the tech world, so we don't have experience in doing this kind of thing very often, so it's really, really exciting.
5G is a system that provides a network of networks. This is the way that networks of the future in 5G will operate. They will create conditions that today are not possible for people to interact, live, work in different places in ways that they cannot do today with today's networks.
So as you could see, that example and the low latency meant that the musicians could interact in like kind of such close to real time that they could actually deliver a synchronized performance, which was really exciting. Obviously that's not VR, but you could do something similar with kind of 360 video or something along those lines. Next slide, please, Evelyn. So the second kind of big area that I think the 5G team think that 5G can bring to immersive is actually kind of the distribution angle. And this is kind of especially relevant now. I think we've all been tuning into kind of live streamed events now that everything's shut down. Yeah, so 5G will deliver much smoother streaming experiences, and it'll allow things like streaming to multiple VR devices, and even the idea of kind of live broadcasting, editing and live streaming all kind of in one process happening at the one time. And obviously we've seen kind of like, yes, this massive appetite come with the coronavirus situation for live experiences streamed into people's homes. So we would be really interested in working on something like that on a project. So, you know, this might involve kind of bringing a distribution partner into your CreativeXR project. And if that is something that you're interested in, definitely get in touch with the CreativeXR team, because we do have a network of companies who have already been through our 5G testbed accelerator who might be able to support on something like that. Next slide, please, Evelyn. Yeah, so this is just the full list of the 5G facilities at Digital Catapult. I won't go through all of them, but as you can see, it involves a fully licensed 5G network, the hardware that you would need to test, edge computing capabilities and 5G dongles and that kind of thing. So yeah, this slide will be shared, so you'll have that full list to take back to your technical team. Next slide, please, Evelyn. And yes, this is just the kind of extra steps that would be added to your CreativeXR program experience should you get onto the 5G Strand. So after you apply, you will have an initial conversation with a 5G technologist just to confirm the details of your application and for them to ask any questions still remaining. Then that will happen between the 8th and the 10th of June. Then on the 19th of June, you will have found out whether or not you have been selected for the CreativeXR program, and that would include the strands as well. After that, you would have a one-to-one call with a 5G technologist who would brief you on a integration plan that you would have to submit by the 15th of July. So that would just be things like timeline, technical objectives for the 5G element of the project, and also things like hardware requirements in case you need anything that we don't currently have and we would need to source it. And then throughout the prototyping phase, you would have a fortnightly technical meeting with our 5G technologists in order to get yourself integrated onto the 5G network. This says, at the testbed location, we hope that will be possible as much as possible, but we will have to be flexible on that. So, but there will need to be at least, 1 or 2 meetings at the actual testbed location. So that is it from me. Thank you very much. Myself and Farah boards will be online now for the Q&A to answer any questions you might have about the 5G Strand. So back to you, Evelyn.
Hello, thank you, Caroline, for that. So, as mentioned, it is the Q&A session. And just to reiterate again, if you have questions for our presenters, you have questions around AI, 5G, or questions around the program itself, make sure you send them into the Q&A box. We will still be receiving those questions, and make sure you upvote them. So in terms of who will be speaking, we'll have Farah Boz, Caroline, Nathan, and Madalena Krusty. Nathan, Madalena, are you ready? Caroline, are you ready?
I am ready.
Yes.
I'm ready to fire away. So who's my first victim? Okay, so I think I've got some questions coming in here. So I think Maddie, I'll start with you. There's a question around copyright and ownership with CreativeXR. How does that work if a project is selected?
CreativeXR does not retain any IP into the project. The only thing that we retain is a license to be able to showcase the prototype in our immersive labs. But all of the copyright remains with the producers. And you can find more information about this in the FAQs on the website. So I will post a link to those. And I do really recommend you read those before applying.
Thank you. So another quick question as well. Can a project span 2 different strands? So can it be in 5G, AI, epic game, story features? is that a possibility?
That is definitely a possibility, but the one thing that I would consider is that all of the strands will still take time. So you might want to think about how you want to spend your time, and if you have that amount of time, because obviously with the 5G projects, you have to spend time with the technologists. With the AI project, same. With Story Futures, you'll hear more about it in the webinar, but you will be spending time looking at your script with a mentor, and with Unreal, it's more about technical support. So that one might be a bit more hands-off. But yes, you can apply to as many strands as you want with the same project.
Brilliant, thanks. So we have a question around 5G. So Caroline and Fariboz, if you're ready for that. So the question is, what 5G infrastructure is provided in our testbed locations, and how representative do we think that infrastructure, do you think it is of infrastructure that will be rolled out in the near future? So macro cells, smart cells, etc.
Yeah, hi everybody, it's Fariboz. We have 3 testbed actually, and one of testbed in London. We have a 5G NR that is a standalone, a non-standalone NSA that exactly that others normal operators operate in the UK, like Vodafone, EE3. We are in the same technology that they have. We have in our testbed. We are working as an operator, very small scale operator in our testbed. We have a 5G NR, we have a 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, and especially we have a computing as an edge computing. We call it MEC, mobile edge computing. We have all the facility as a network operator that you can see in a EE or Vodafone or any commercial operators we have in our testbed.
Thank you. So I hope that answers your question. So we have a question around AI. So somebody has said, I have been reading up on AI and its responses to accurately respond to diverse ethnic groups with facial recognition software. Has this been a factor to consider in our game development at all? So I think that's sort of like a question for Maddie as well. But I think, Nathan, it would be great if you could sort of like speak on maybe the ethics around, facial recognition and making sure that all people are recognized using AI technology.
Absolutely. Maddie, do you want to go first and I can pick up later?
You go first.
Okay, cool. Yes, so it's a very good question. And this is definitely something that that we are very conscious of whenever we work with startups, when we work with corporates, and typically these kind of issues stem from imbalanced data sets. So kind of a facial recognition software being trained on mostly faces of people from particular ethnic groups and not others. So we actually have done some research in this area to kind of compare different tools to for example, give the machine learning team of a startup feedback, kind of live feedback via a tool to say, talk about the imbalance of their data, but also kind of how there are different levels of accuracy and sensitivity according to different protected characteristics. So this is definitely something that we're interested in generally. With regards to VR and AR, well, I guess it's more relevant in augmented reality if you have a facial recognition component. But in virtual reality, I guess it wouldn't be very very relevant when it comes to faces, but could definitely be relevant to a number of other input variables. So for example, if we have a pose recognition algorithm, does it cover many different kind of cultural contexts in terms of interpreting body language? So things like this are always things that you want to consider, especially if you roll out an AI system. And that's something that we're happy to discuss as part of the AI Strand.
Great, thank you. So Mazzy, can you just comment on if that's something that should be considered in the application process, the ethics around facial?
Yes, that definitely should be considered. And the one thing that I would add to that is that we're thinking about that a lot as well from the immersive side, and thinking about ethics around data, but also around accessible design. So we will be working on this throughout the prototype period as well, and we're working closely with Nina from XRDI to help us design workshops around accessibility and around ethics and data. So definitely consider that in your applications.
Thank you. So another 5G question. What are the best platforms to use, and what devices should be used that are compatible for 5G technology?
Yes, the 5G phones that we are in our test bed actually is the Samsung S10 and S20 that they are 5G enabled. We are also using the CPE as a home-based 5G unit that you can use as a router at home. We have both connectivity users equipment as a 5G phone and CPE, and also we consider another phones as well, maybe another brands, but at the moment we have only Samsung S10 and S20 and CPE.
Okay, thank you. And what phone providers do we work with to enable 5G?
Yeah, Samsung. Yeah, Samsung is a phone provider.
Okay, great, thank you. So another question we have is around the investment landscape for AR. So the question is, what is the health of the investment landscape look like for AR, as there is some discouragement with the struggles of Magic Lamp or Magic Leap, I think that's supposed to say, and HoloLens 2.
Sorry, so the question is, what is the investment landscape?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
So I think my reaction to this question would be in terms of mobile AR, I think that's kind of where a lot of projects and companies are pivoting towards, because obviously, you know, it's for at-home use, it's more accessible. Whereas with kind of head-mounted displays, from the AR point of view, like Magic Leap and HoloLens, those are clearly less accessible to consumers, so to the audience itself. The Magic Leap and HoloLens are particularly more pivoting towards manufacturing industries and kind of B2B, whereas CreativeXR is definitely a consumer. It's meant for immersive prototypes for consumers. So, and obviously, you know, with Magic Leap, the recent layoffs, that what I read recently was that that's kind of where they're going towards. So that would be my response.
Okay, thank you. So obviously, you know, COVID has affected, excuse me, has affected us significantly. So it would, I think, be, and there have been a lot of, unfortunately, I have to mention conspiracy theories around 5G causing things. So I think if you could just, you don't have to go for too long, but it would be great, Farabos, if you could just comment like dispel some of the myths around you know, these conspiracy theories and 5G, so that, because we don't want it to hinder the progression of the sector. So it would just be great to get your insight on what's true, what's not true, and why 5G is important for the development of immersive content.
Yeah, actually the 5G is very important for the connectivity of the people in a rural area, that the people they have a home, they have a house. The 5G is for connecting the people, and all this idea about the harmful of the 5G is actually not true. All the government and all the department has been approved that the 5G is not harmful, and actually the base regarding the power transmission, that is very important regarding electromagnetic transmission power. The 5G is less than the 4G, and all this theory is not true, and also the government has approved that the 5G is not harmful. Yeah, this is the you can find. We can share the link from the government that they approve, and also the Ofcom, the governmental body that approved the transmission power. They approved that the 5G is not harmful. Yeah, we can share the links.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include that in the post-event email. So you heard it here, folks. 5G is not a danger to us. Experts are telling us that it's okay. So yeah, thank you, Fariboz. So one question for you, Nathan. You spoke about some research. Somebody wanted to ask, will that be available to share afterwards? Will you be happy to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. I answered that question by typing, but I'll just put a link in the chat as well. And this is just a link to our Applied AI Ethics webpage, and that has a link to our academic paper on the framework of applied AI ethics tools.
Awesome, thanks. So we have another question, I think, for you, Maddy. So somebody has said, I have read the FAQs and guidance and understands that audio experiences are included. Would something on smart speakers be eligible within this?
If there was an element, so we actually did have a project on smart speakers in the last cohort, but it also had an element of AR in it. So what I would say is there would need to be an element of immersive technology. So spatial audio, like immersive audio, I don't think smart speakers would by themselves have the capability of transmitting immersive audio experiences. So it would have to have some sort of element of AR in it, or some sort of element of real-time technology or immersive technology. And it would definitely need to be an experience that is a content-based experience and audience-facing.
Great. So I think in terms of questions, that is it. I don't see any more questions coming through. So I suppose I'd just like to round up. It would be great perhaps if Maddy can just like give your final thoughts about like what you've heard from the presentations and what you hope to see in terms of like use cases or examples and applications.
I think just reiterating on what I said in the beginning, which is what I hope to see, I guess, is very a variety of like very creative projects that are looking at challenges of distribution in different ways that we maybe right now we can't even imagine, but that can overcome this at-home situation. And And also, the other thing I would hope is that different companies from our different technology layers, so as Nathan mentioned, like from MI Garage or from our 5G programs, might collaborate with our immersive creators, because I think those would really create some amazing applications and use cases, because they would combine both the storytelling element and kind of the content element, the experience element with the creative element with the technology. And I think with Digital Catapult, we haven't really run this before. It's kind of an experiment, you know, in terms of combining the technologies in this way. We haven't done it on CreativeXR, and we're doing it very actively right now with these webinars, and I think it's really exciting, and I do hope some exciting projects will come out of it.
Great. So thank you to the team at Digital Catapult and Arts Council England for presenting and answering questions. So in terms of our next steps, this is the end of this webinar, but we do have one more where you'll have the opportunity to hear from our partners, Epic Games and Story Futures Academy. And that will be on Wednesday, the 29th of April at 10 a.m. So do make sure you register to attend that. We'll put the link in the event email afterwards. If I'm sure you've been chatting a lot in the separate chat box, so do get connecting if you know that thing can get really busy. So if you've missed out on anything, we are going to send through a Typeform collaboration survey. Again, if you're interested in connecting somebody who has that AI capability or 5G capability, and you want to bring that into your immersive project, do please fill in that survey, and we will make sure that those connections are made. So the deadline for that is the 1st of May at 5 p.m. So that will be shared in the chat or put in the email. And finally, make sure that you apply to CreativeXR. We hope that this webinar has been really insightful for you, and you make some connections and bring forward your really amazing projects that we want to see, that we want to help fund. And the deadline for that is on Sunday, the 17th of May, 11:59 p.m. So that is it from us. Thank you to Larry, to all of our speakers who have joined us today. And thank you, all of you, for joining the webinar. Like you've asked some really helpful and insightful questions. I think that will benefit a lot of other people. So it's great to see that connection and networking going on. So thank you once again. Have a good day, and hopefully see you at the next webinar. Bye, everyone.